Trying to figure out who you need to start this week in fantasy football? Don't worry, we got you covered. All right, guys, welcome back to the show. I'm your host, as always, Jay. And listen, my voice is a little scratchy this week. I did go to the Vegas Golden Knights home opener, so I have not fully recovered from my voice being lost from that. But I am going to try to man up and get through this show to help you with your fantasy elections this week. Now, as always, we don't get into the nitty-gritty of the big guys you're going to start. I'm not going to come on here and say start Lamar Jackson, all right? You know you're playing him every week. I'm not coming here to tell you to start Derrick Henry. I'm not going to tell you those things. I'm going to look at more of the streaming options. And, of course, nowadays, with all the injuries, it's more than likely you're going to need this in one of your leagues. So we're going to start off with the quarterbacks. And remember, stay tuned for our number one picks. I'm going to give you my top three, but the number one picks will come at the end of the show. Hopefully, I can surprise a couple of you with some of my picks. But at the quarterback position, at number three, we're going to start off with Daniel Jones playing the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals are 31st in passing yards and 22nd in passing TDs. The secondary gives up a ton in the passing game. Not to mention, Daniel Jones is always most effective when he's able to use his legs, and the Cincinnati Bengals are ranked 29th in rushing yards to the QB. So look for Danny Dimes to play a big role and have a good game against the Cincinnati Bengals this week, despite not having Malik Nabers this week. Number two, Caleb Williams is coming off a couple strong games. We're looking to hit his stride here in the season. Things are looking up for the Chicago Bears, especially with a great defense. They're on the road, of course, in London against Jacksonville. Jacksonville gives it his 30th against passing yards and 28th in passing TDs. Caleb does like to run about a bit and may create time or maybe rush for a few first downs. Does help when you are ranked 26th in rush yards to the quarterback. So the Bears quarterback could be a viable option this week in fantasy. If you need a quarterback to start, look at these two guys. At the running back position, number three, got Chuba Hubbard. He's going against Atlanta this week. Atlanta is 25th in rushing yards. They are the best in giving up against rushing touchdowns. But Chuba does get involved in the receiving game. He has had 4 targets the last couple weeks. Before that, he had 5. He does get involved. They are 24th in receiving yards to the running back. So if Hubbard gets involved in the passing game, look for Chuba Hubbard to have another stellar game for you in fantasy. Number two, I've said it all the time. I just like his matchups. He doesn't come through for me as much, especially because he does not have any touchdowns. But I'm going to go with him one more time, and it's Najee Harris. Najee Harris is playing against the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders are 27th in rush yards and 22nd in rush touchdowns. If he's going to get one, this would be the week. So far, the only person with a rushing touchdown on that team is Justin Fields. Now, if he's the only one going, I know Jaylen Warren is questionable for Sunday, but if he's the only running back coming out of the backfield, look for them to get him involved in the receiving game, as Las Vegas is number 27th ranked against running backs in the receiving game, and they give up their 28th against the receiving touchdowns. Give up a ton of receptions. They do not defend the running backs in the pass game very well. Look for Najee Harris to have a good game if they get him involved in the passing game and Jaylen Warren is unavailable for the game. Wide receivers, everybody's talked about this one. My number 3 guy is Jalen Tolbert. He's been all over the place. The matchup is brilliant. Brandon Cooks is out. He is clearly the number 2, and he's started to step up and see a target share go up the last few weeks. Jalen Tolbert is playing a Detroit defense that's 31st in receiving yards and 28th against receiving touchdowns. You got to go with the Dallas wide receivers here, as Detroit's defense gives up 8.5 more points than average to the opposing wide receivers. Number 2, I got a couple names here because I think both of them can be very effective. It ties in nicely with my quarterback pick, and it's Keenan Allen and DJ Moore. The reason for Keenan Allen, Jacksonville is ranked 25th in receiving yards and 26th in receiving touchdowns. He's a bigger body guy. I think he gets in the end zone this week, and he's going to get a ton of targets because they give up those short yardage targets like butter over there in Jacksonville. Now, the reason I like DJ Moore as well in this game is Jacksonville is ranked 26th in receiving yards over 40 yards. So look for DJ Moore to open it up for Keenan Allen with a big play down the field to make him fantasy relevant this week. Now, before we get into our number ones, guys, who do you like this week in fantasy? Please comment below. Maybe I missed something in my research that I didn't see, and I'd love to see if somebody will point that out to me. But tight end spot, I got 2 names for you. I'm not going to get into it in big with the tight ends. You know, the tight ends is a carousel. It's a dart throw. The two I do like this week, Dewan Johnson of the New Orleans Saints and Cade Otton of the Buccaneers. Reason for it, these two teams are playing each other, and they're two of the worst against tight ends. So if you're looking for somebody to play in your tight end spot, and you just need somebody to maybe get you a touchdown, you're not looking for a big boom game, but look for some reasonable points at the tight end position, look at those two names. They should have decent games. Now, my fantasy dart throws. If you're really, really reaching for some guys and really need some help this week, here's 3 names I think you could use and be perfectly fine with a decent floor with these guys. A quarterback. If you're in a 2 QB league, this is a big one. Spencer Rattler. Tampa Bay has been terrible in pass defense, giving up the most points to fantasy quarterbacks in every which way you possibly could think of. But Spencer Rattler's coming in, and maybe he's just airing it up to sling this ball all over the place. Could it have a huge game as Tampa Bay gives up almost 7 points more to fantasy quarterbacks than the average? A running back, you got to go Jerome Ford. It's playing the Eagles. They give up a ton of rushing yards, but the biggest thing is if he's the only back going for the Brownies, and he gets involved in the passing game, the Eagles struggle with the running backs he played who catch the ball on the backfield. Wide receiver ties in with the quarterback, Chris Olave. If Spencer Rattler is going off, look for it to be Chris Olave doing the damage. Tampa Bay gives up on average 11.5 more points than the average to opposing wide receivers. Well, those are 3 guys. If you really need some help and are looking for some miracles, those guys might be able to help you guys out. But my number ones, we're going to start off with the quarterback position. You have to go with Kirk Cousins. Now, you look at the stats, Carolina's defense is not that bad against the pass, but I think that's because they've been blown out in so many games early in the season before they went to Andy Dalton, and maybe he just didn't need to throw the ball as much. Last week alone, they gave up over 300 yards and 2 TDs to Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears, and look for Kirk Cousins in a hot Atlanta offense to do some damage there as well. Now that Andy Dalton's running things at the QB spot, I'm hoping that Carolina can stay in this game to keep pushing that offense on the Atlanta side of the ball, and it should be a good game for Kirk Cousins. At the running back position, love me some Tony Pollard this week playing the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts are 31st in the rush yards and 25th in rush TDs, and they are also 29th in receiving yards giving up to the opposing running backs. Look for Tony Pollard to really have a good game this week. He's proven that he's a man. It's not as much of a timeshare as we all thought it was going to be with Tyjae Spears in the beginning of the season. It looks like Tony Pollard is going to be the man, and he should have a good week here playing the Colts defense. At wide receiver, I like Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper, I know everybody hates Deshaun Watson, and he's looked terrible this year so far, but Amari Cooper is still 4th most in targets, and he's going up against the Philadelphia defense, who was 30th in receiving yards and 32nd in receiving touchdowns against opposing wide receivers. They are giving up 10 points more than the league average in fantasy to wide receivers. Look for Amari Cooper to continue to see targets, hopefully gets a little bit more catchable balls, because I believe the catchable balls that he's getting is about 54%. If Deshaun Watson can get that up a little bit, look for Amari Cooper to have a huge day. Well, guys, I hope this helps. And I apologize once again for my voice. I know it's a little hoarse, a little raspy. Hopefully it's better for Tuesday's show with Big Time Sean. And listen, please comment below. Tell me who you like this week and tell me why. I love to get a discussion started of what you think and what I think. And hey, it's a lot of fun to talk fantasy football. Everybody loves doing it, especially this season with all the injuries. Everybody's looking for help on their rosters this time of year. Well, remember, follow me on Instagram and on TikTok at Vegas Guy J. I'm putting up posts there with questions, people's opinions on who to start, who they like this week. And follow me. I'm putting those up daily, so follow me there. And as well, if you can't watch the videos, please look for us wherever you get your podcasts. We're all over the place. We're on YouTube Music, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Apple, wherever you get your podcast. Please rate, review us, and join us every week for these shows. And all right, guys, that's my fix for the week. Until next time, see you in the next one, guys.
Hey, it's Jesse from the Vegas Guys Locker Room. You guys ever thought about starting your own podcast? Whether it be for business, personal, or simply talking about the things you love? Well, I can honestly say when we started our podcast, it was the best decision and it's the most fun we've ever had. But starting a new podcast can be overwhelming at times. And that's where Buzzsprout comes in. Buzzsprout is the best way to start your own professional podcast. They're so good, they've already helped out over 100,000 podcasters get their message out to the world. Buzzsprout offers you so many tools, like a great-looking podcast website, audio players that you can drop into other websites, detailed analytics to see how people are listening, and tools to promote your episodes, and more and more and more. Buzzsprout even gets your show listed on every major podcast platform, such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. They provide so many tools to help you get started with tutorials on YouTube, podcast tutorials, everything you may need to get your journey started. So if you're looking to start your professional podcast today, follow the link in the show notes. This lets Buzzsprout know that we sent you and help support our show. Buzzsprout, the easiest way to start a podcast.